And what a blessing to be here. Uh, Old faces, new faces, what a joy. As Dale shared, this is a church that whenever I'm here and we come to visit, I'm filled with all the memories. So many memories of even my childhood of coming. And it is a group of people who are intrinsically intertwined with my story and who God has made me to be. And so I'm so grateful because of that. So many of you who have prayed for me and for us for so many years and been the foundation of what God has done in our lives. And we're so thankful for that and for the others that we have been able to bless as a result of that. And we're here today to be able to share with you what you guys are a part of in that bigger picture as we seek to raise up the next generation of missionaries and equip them to live out the mission of God and help them understand that missions is not just necessarily going someplace, but loving the people that God brings to you and being a reflection of His image, and in this way sharing in a holistic way who He is and His love and His truth. And so we do this primarily with Touch the World through training young people. Many churches and schools have programs where they encourage students to get involved in a missions trip. And one of the things that we have come to understand is that training for these events is so important. Without them, they can often become kind of like a Christian vacation, which there's nothing wrong with that. But often students experience great poverty, they experience different cultures, they experience a lot of different things when they might go on a missions trip. But it's very difficult without training to know how to take that experience and fold it back into their lives in a sustaining way. It almost kind of becomes like, oh yeah, I did that. It felt like a dream, like I did that thing. We are seeing the need to help students take these opportunities that God provides for them within the context of mission and be able to train them in such a way that that experience then becomes something that they can, that really grows them in their entire lives, right? And how they live out their life in a missional way. And so we have our main program, which is a 3-day training for churches coming alongside youth pastors. Youth pastors don't need to be experts in missions. We would love to be able to come alongside of those youth pastors and be able to resource our expertise, and being able to do that in a 3-day training before the students go out on trips. And this is our main program. We provide this mainly in the summer times because that's when missions trips do happen. And then we have also come more recently to see more of a need in the young adult area regarding kind of a next step beyond, okay, once we've gotten that experience, we have that experience, being able to provide with these young people a deeper experience, a more significant, longer experience that takes a lot of the curriculum that we do and goes deeper. And so more recently, we have started a new aspect of our ministry, and we call it the Gap Year Program. And this is a 1-year college accredited program that takes all of our curriculum and spans it over and goes deeper into a lot of the same areas that we train in our 3-day training and in our other programs, we go deeper and we provide also college credit for this. A lot of high school students, once they graduate from high school, maybe they've gone on a missions trip, maybe they've had that experience and they're excited about, what does God want me to do in my life? But they're young and they don't know yet, who am I? Who really is God? Where do I fit in his story? What does it mean for me to be a part of that story? And they need to be able to have mentors in their life that walk them through and help them. Their parents have done a good job, hopefully, in being able to provide that for them to a certain extent, but now as adults, taking ownership and responsibility, more responsibility for that journey, and being able to walk alongside of them and help them discover more of who God is and who they are in his story, and also give them opportunities to experience mission in various forms, using their gifts, whatever that might be. And so for the last 9 months of Randy's in my life, we have been entrenched in this gap year program, teaching, helping them, our students, our small group of students, develop spiritual character, giving them just wonderful opportunities, many diverse, different opportunities for service, not only locally, but as Dale mentioned, a trip to Greece. They were there for a whole month. All of this is they're being given credit for, which is wonderful on a college level and in their education, being able to transfer the credits very easily to universities like Cairn and Liberty, different universities that are excited about our program and wanting to take in these students that we're able to take this gap year with. So we're so excited about this, and this is our main focus of what we're doing this morning, is sharing a little bit about what we're doing in the gap year program. I have for you a slide of our schedule that we have been living out in the last 9 months. This is a new thing for Randy and I, and we're very excited about that newness. Sometimes I feel like I'm a little old to be doing this, but it's been really cool because the program is a very small program, intentionally so, with intentional discipleship and mentorship, and it takes place in our home. We live at the Mission Center where all of our training with Touch the World occurs, but our home has now two apartments. Fully, they both have kitchens, living room, two bedrooms each. One is the girls' apartment, one is the guys' apartment. And we provide an opportunity for the students to be able to cook on their own, learn some life skills, adulting, as you know that all students need in that transition between mom and dad's home and then becoming their own person and becoming self-governed. The program was really designed to help the students be able to become more self-governed. And as you can see, in the morning we have our teaching sessions, our learning labs. We have a full program where we're encouraging them with not just spiritual disciplines, but physical disciplines and practical disciplines, where we are helping them with and providing opportunities, like I said before, for service locally and then also globally, so that they can get a very diverse experience with all of the service opportunities that are out there, and then they can kind of interact with what did I like? What did I like going to Greece and working with homeless people, or do I prefer being more local, or going to a personal care home and spending time with the older folks and allowing them to share our stories? Which kind of ministry and which kind of things did I gravitate to? So we give them all of these opportunities, along with a lot of the spiritual disciplines that we want to be instilling in their life. And so we're we're able to during the learning labs, which Randy's going to be talking a little bit about just in a few minutes, being able to talk with them about what it means to live on mission every day, everywhere, and where God is calling us to live that out. We just graduated our students. We had a small group of students that we just graduated 2 weeks ago. And so for that graduation, their parents come to pick their students up. We put together and compiled the 9 months of our life in a video. How do you do that, in a couple of minutes? It's just really, really hard. But we thought you would enjoy watching this short video to see what our lives have been full of. Some of it is service stuff that they're doing. Some of it's in Greece. Some of it's in missions training. And you can just get a picture of where we've been and what we've been doing in the lives of these students over the last 9 months. So if we can go ahead and show you that. It's been an amazing year, as you can see, full of incredible opportunities of adventure, of service, of walking alongside these students and helping them to understand God's love and truth in a more deep way. The community that we've built together has been such a place where Randy and I have understood our gifting in a more real way than we've ever experienced before, because they live with us, and our ministry to them has been day in and day out, 24/7. And because of that, living in community, we have come to understand that true growth, spiritual growth, really does come when we come together and we are accountable to one another and we grow in faith together. And we're so excited that we have been able to do this with these students. Randy's going to come and share with you some of our core missions principles that we used as part of our curriculum for the Gap Year program. And then I'm going to close out with a little bit of a kind of add-on, an update on things in Cuba as we were able to go just a couple of months ago, and wanting to update you on that at the very end.
Well, good morning. As Deb said, it's such a privilege to come back and just thank you, Pastor Kevin, Amy, for having us back. And Dale, because you're the one that called us, I think, or emailed or something, I don't remember. But we just love coming back and just the heritage here of Deb's family, and it's become part of my just younger Christian life and all the way through. So Deb shared that we have the training of short-term mission teams that we've deemed as seeing it as very essential to effective short-term missions. And really, I'm going to share with you 8 principles that are not just for short-term teams going out, but for all of us in our everyday lives, as we rub up against people in our work lives, in our neighborhoods and schools and wherever we are, that we can utilize. Touch the World is founded in 1990 and went through a transformation in 2014, I think, when Jesse our director came back from Uganda, serving there, being on the receiving end of short-term mission teams. He had been there, and short-term teams had come from various organizations, including Touch the World. And Touch the World had trainings back then, but he said, whoa, they're not adequate. We're not training in the right things. We're training in puppets and construction and VBS, and all those things are fine, but they're not enough. It's not we don't come with an understanding of how to serve alongside, and come with an understanding of what it means to be learners as we go. Because we have the tendency to, as Americans, as Westerners, to come in with a know-it-all attitude sometimes, and that we're better because we have more money than you do, and things like that. So obviously that's wrong. It's not a good way to approach serving. Jesus, that wasn't his attitude. It shouldn't be ours. So these, as Deb mentioned, these principles really are throughout our missions training, but we were able to take a much deeper dive with the Gap Year, our deepest dive yet in discipleship. And so our mission is to equip young people to live out the mission of God every day in their lives and everywhere they are, no matter what their vocation is. So we want to equip young people to just be the salt and light that God has meant for us to be. So the first principle is that missions is a lifestyle. See, we're sent ones. Mission, although it's not in the Bible, the word mission we won't find in the Bible, the concept certainly is. Jesus said that as the Father sent me, so I send you. And that's in John 20:21. God invites us, and then he sends us out. And we're to live with purpose. We're not to be just standing still. We got our ticket to our train to heaven, and now we're in the club, and that's it. That's not God's plan. That's not his program. We're to be actively engaged in the abundant life he's promised us. So missions is not a one-time activity. It's a lifestyle. It's not just the mission trip or the idea of going and serving for a day and that event. It's a mentality. It's a heartbeat that we should all have. And we know what the mission is. We know that it's to go and make disciples. That's for all his disciples. My father-in-law, John Meyer, Deb's dad, used to stand at this pulpit, and others, many others, and he would say, his disciples make his disciples. Very special man. So missions is a lifestyle. It's how we are to live. It's our way of thinking. So along with that is that training is essential. Deb mentioned that it's essential to doing effective work for the Lord. We train before we get behind the wheel of a car. At least we should. When I was 12, my friend Jake and I were driving his sister's car, or Jake was driving his sister's car, and he goes, hey, you want to try? And I said, yeah, sure. And I had never been behind the wheel of a car. And I'm in their neighborhood, and I'm driving along, probably at 15, 20 miles an hour, but I didn't know you're supposed to brake before you go into the turn, and so that was news to me, but I didn't make the turn. And I'm in a ditch, and thankfully nobody was hurt, and I didn't, do too much damage to the car. But we need training. We should be trained before we do things that could potentially do damage, and we've seen that. Jesse in Uganda would be on the receiving end of these teams and just shake his head and go, what are we doing back home to train these teams? We're not doing an effective job with our training. So he came back in 2014 and he said, we are going to either shut our doors or we are going to reinvent what we do. And we are going to be a catalyst for change in short-term missions. And we want to get the word out to churches and not just do our own little thing in our own little corner of the world, but to put this out to the world. And so we've put our trainings online. And COVID gave us that opportunity to pivot and do much of what we do in person in Pennsylvania and the Poconos at the Mission Center, and put that online so that youth groups anywhere can take advantage of a lot of this training. So it's easy, however, to put very little thought into serving because we go with good intentions. We're well intended, but we need to serve with forethought, else we can do harm and not so much good. We can end up in the ditch, in a sense. And so proper training allows us to learn things like listening skills and then gain empathy that result in effective kingdom building relationships. We learn about our identity in Christ and take a deep dive in that first off. And poverty, that it's complex. It's not just go get a job, guy. There may not be a job in Guatemala or other places. And so it's understanding some of the complexities of poverty and culture, that we're all cultural creatures and we come with our understanding of what things mean, and we go to another culture. It might even be a culture down the street that's a little different from ours, because our family culture is a little different from the family down the street even. So we need to kind of think of that, and so we train in that. Jesse told a story when he was in Uganda of a short-term team that was led from New Jersey, and one of the mothers was one of the chaperones on the trip, and a woman approached her and said, "Could you give me some money?" And she wanted to be polite and kind and everything, and she said, "Well, I don't have money, and I would have to ask my husband, and he's not here, he's back in the United States." And she thought she'd kind of dodged that bullet, and then a couple months later, the woman approached Jesse, our director, and said, "Where's my money?" He said, what are you talking about? He said, "The woman that was at the team that came this summer said that all she had to do was talk to her husband." And that's not what the woman meant at all. It was just a misunderstanding. But sometimes we accidentally promise things we don't want to do that. When we, especially with teenagers, when we take them on trips, they say, "Oh, I'll come back. This was amazing. I love you, man." And they never come back. So we don't want to promise things. We don't want to say things inadvertently that, we're well-intended, but it just doesn't have the right outcome in the end. So the woman blamed Jesse and said, "You've stolen my money. You took it." All she had to do was talk to her husband and she would send it. And she embellished the story a little, it seems, as I understand it. But Jesse didn't take the money. He didn't know about the money. And then she spread around the neighborhood that Jesse's a thief. He'll take your money. So that does damage. So we can unintentionally do damage unless we're very careful and well-trained. Thirdly, partnership matters. Touch the World, we don't go out and do our own thing. We always partner with vetted missionary hosts who live in the local community we go to. People who know the people who have that long-term relationship. So our short-term teams never go on a location and do our own thing. One time a team did do that in Uganda. They came and Jesse was aware of that. It wasn't his operation at all, but he was aware of a team that came, and they came into a village and they decided that the church here needs a building. They meet under a big tree. That's not good. It rains. You can't have consistent meetings sometimes, during the rainy season. And so they said, we'll get you a building. So they ordered a whole bunch of concrete block and they started building a wall right in the middle of the soccer field that the whole community used. And they finished their week or two that they were there, and they moved on, and they took their pictures and put them on Instagram and Facebook, and they felt really good about what they had done and said, "Here, now you finish the job." And of course, the Africans scratched their head and they were like, "Why do we have a wall in our soccer field?" They took it down and they were able to use the block. Thankfully, there was some good that came out of that, but we need to be thoughtful. We need to partner with ministries that are on the ground, that live locally and understand the culture, and so we don't just come in and do our own thing. The church is Christ's body, and he is using us and wants to use us to help God's community to flourish. So how we partner and who we partner with really matters. When we serve, we need to be subservient to our missionary hosts, and otherwise we may end up damaging the local efforts there. Fourthly, God's already there. He's already in that community. He's already at work. He's been at work for millennia. And so although we are called to live on mission, we don't really bring God to others who are spiritually lost in that sense. He's been kind of grooming that culture and those people for a while to know him. He's everywhere, and his work is reconciling people to himself since the beginning. The Apostle Paul put it this way in Acts 17:27. He said 26 and 27. From one man he made every nationality to live over the whole earth, and has determined their appointed times and the boundaries of where they live. He did this so they might seek God, and perhaps they might reach out and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. Paul joined God in his mission. God's already moving. He's already at work. He's everywhere. So before we concentrate on what's lacking, let's take a step back and recognize that he's there and not put ourselves in the position of provider or savior, which we can do sometimes. 1 Corinthians 3:9 says, we are God's co-workers in his service. So we partner with God Almighty in doing his work. That's an amazing thought, isn't it? That he's already there, he's been working, and then he uses us and our story to plug into his larger story of sharing his redemption. God's a missionary God. He's love, and love must share. And he uses us to do that. But it's not all on our backs. Next, poverty is not just material. Poverty is brokenness. It is the lack of something, but it's not just material things. And how we look at a problem is going to address how we view the solution to the problem. If we think people, they just need some food, well, we'll just give them food. Problem solved, right? That's only a very short-term solution. And you just keep doing that, it creates dependence. And then there's a lack of dignity in that. So we've got to view the problem with real forethought and understanding. As Christians, we tie brokenness back to the fall of man. And so we've all been broken. We're all broken in our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with our God, our relationship with our fellow man, and our relationship with the rest of creation. So those 4 areas need redemption, and God uses us to do that. But recognizing that we're all broken and that death has spread to everyone puts us all on equal footing. We're all on equal ground. Understanding that mutual effect of sin and brokenness, it levels a playing field, and we don't go in with a better than mentality because I have stuff and you don't, or I'm American and you're not, or something like that. So we understand that our identity is in Christ. We're redeemed, but God's still redeeming us. We're redeemed and we're being redeemed, and we will be finally completely redeemed. So there's an already not yet kind of aspect to things. But God uses us in that. In understanding that, I was in El Salvador years ago with a short-term team, and I asked the director of the mission, I said, what's your biggest challenge in working with the homeless here in San Salvador? And he said, it is the most difficult thing I have to overcome is the mentality that the people have, that they weren't made to flourish. A lot of these people were born in abject poverty, and they don't believe that they could or should have any higher level than where they are at right now. So they don't try. It's kind of in the stars for them to live on the street. And so overcoming that mentality is his biggest challenge in working with folks to help not just lift them out of poverty, but lift them into understanding who God is, and that they are deeply loved by our God and the redemption of Christ. So poverty of soul is what he was really combating at its deepest level, and that preceded their material poverty. So poverty is not just material, poverty is brokenness. Next, we want to do with, not for. Is it till noon did I have, basically? Or am I? Okay. Is that right? Okay. I'm totally, so try to make this quick here. So we do with, not for. And we want to restore and increase and work to increase dignity that people have. When we do for things, for people, we are not really recognizing their dignity to contribute. And it relies on my abilities, my gifting, and my strengths. So we want to be sensitive to that. So many times we go in and we do a project as Westerners. We like to do a project, we complete it, and then we've done mission work. But mostly what people need is relationship quite often. Yes, they do need their physical needs met. And they do need some physical things. But particularly this experience in Greece recently with our gap year students, we were told right at the get-go, this is a coffee culture. In other words, they love just sitting and talking. So the most you can do with them or for them is to sit down and get to know them and find out about their lives. And this was with young adults, it was with teenagers, and it was with homeless people that have been on the streets for many years. Next, empathy and culture. Culture is kind of like an iceberg in one way. So the above the water part that we can see, that's the part of culture that is pretty obvious. Food, the food that they eat, the music they listen to, the language they speak, the clothes they wear. Those kinds of things are pretty evident to us. But the below the surface things, like values and priorities and norms and communication styles and rules of communication, concepts of time and fairness, displays of emotion, so much more. Those are below the surface, and we need to if we're going to be effective in another culture, we should pay attention to those things and learn and go in as learners. And that will help us to be empathetic as we approach people and seek to share the light and the love of the Lord. So that's obviously the difficult part too, is seeing below the surface. Just like in our ocean, we know the surface of the ocean, we have for centuries, but we're still learning all about the great depths of the ocean. There's a lot there we still don't know. So we need to listen. We need to listen well, and we need to put ourselves in the place of a learner, and that helps us to grow in empathy. And lastly, we want to ask before assuming. When we're faced with new information, we take that through a filter of information we already hold to be true. So when we encounter strange things that seem strange to us, if we take the posture that it's not necessarily wrong, it's just different, that'll go a long way toward bridging, putting a bridge between us and the folks we're trying to reach. Just like the young lady that was eating a chicken's foot and that expression on her face for the first time. We try to go in and go, okay, different. And, not used to that, but it was actually the way those were prepared were pretty tasty, believe it or not. And just being open to new experiences like that. So that will help us build bridges. And Paul put it this way. He says, I have become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some. I do all of this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in its blessings. So it's kind of like learning to enjoy eating chicken's feet for the sake of the gospel. So I'm going to turn it back over to Deb to share a little bit about Cuba. And thank you for your time.
Thanks. Just very quickly, one of my responsibilities within Touch the World is as the coordinator of ministries in Cuba. Our last newsletter that we have that's on the back wall has a good deal of information regarding our last trip to Cuba. And if anyone is interested in learning more, knowing more about that ministry there, which is very similar to the one that is Touch the World. They're training up youth to be the next generation of missionaries in Cuba. And my responsibilities there. Please, you're invited to ask any questions. It's a fascinating ministry and one that we're so encouraged to be involved in, but seeking to help them become more self-sustained, which is become really one of our number one goals. At this point, the whole ministry is 100% US dollar funded. And so we're really trying to help them to become self-sustained. And there are new opportunities right now in Cuba that we are exploring and encouraging them to develop. And those are some of the newer aspects of the ministry there. And as well as some change in leadership and the newer staff that's coming up. Very encouraged that they are part. They are the students who've been discipled within the ministry are now our full-time workers, which is so incredibly encouraging to see. So just in closing, thank you so much for your time and your listening ears, your support, your prayer, which sustains us in so many ways. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and God bless.